And we're going to come now to Mr. Keller. Before I recognize him, I just wanted to say I asked my staff to check on this, and the ranking member is correct that there was a mix-up on the press release, which I knew nothing about. But Mr. No's name is indeed on the website, and we thank you very much for your participation and your presence here today, Mr. No. I now recognize Mr. Keller for his 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm glad we're having this meeting today. I'm somewhat disappointed that we aren't following the hearing structure the House passed in HRES 965. If we're going to continue with these briefings, what was the point of setting guidelines for hearings? Additionally, this should be conducted in Washington. More and more workers are showing up to do their jobs across the country. We've proven that Congress can safely hold hearings and meet on the floor. Why can't we show up and work like so many other Americans? In any case, I think it's important discussion that we're having. Americans' constitutional right to peacefully protest is one of the things that makes this country so great. I'm committed to working with the majority of this committee to protect constitutional rights. Peaceful protests should be safe from harm, but it's important to note that many of the protests we've seen have been lately have been anything but peaceful. There have been radical anarchist groups that have brought rioting, tearing down public statues, and looting of private property. And the very businesses that we protect and work so hard to protect, in many cases the provisions of the CARES Act, are being harmed. I'm not sure what other choice an officer has than to continue to do their job. In Seattle, we've seen anti-police zones, and in so many communities across the country, calls to defund police and further violence. For the radical left, their vision of the future is mobs and not jobs. Mr. No, Attorney General Barr has stated that some of the rioting and violence we've been seeing lately was because extremist groups hijacked some of these protests. Can you speak to some of the instances and shed some light on what has been happening with anarchist groups inciting violence?
I'm here on the ground. I would like to bring your attention to this manual that I received from that so-called autonomous zone in Seattle. When I was there was a lot of radical anarchist Antifa literature that was being disseminated like candy, booklets and manuals. This one in particular provides instructions on how to use crowds, quote, crowds of ordinary everyday people is our first line of defense against a police attack. Draw a crowd by calling a meeting of some kind to discuss the crisis or just to dance. If the police build barricades, the crowd will be between us and the cops. So there are very specific instructions, training going around about exploiting large numbers of people as human shields. And that's what we that's what we see happening every day in Portland. So, for example, last week when they barricaded the North Police Precinct and set it on fire, you know what? People in the crowd were shouting at the same time that they were doing this peaceful protest. So there's a lot of misinformation and propaganda going out there, particularly from, in my view, biased journalists and many media crews on the ground in these situations because it's so dangerous. So it's important to recognize that, yes, the majority of the people taking to the streets across the country are peaceful, but it only takes a very small amount of people to turn a demonstration into a riot and cause millions and millions of dollars in damages, as we've seen, destroying livelihoods and causing the deaths of people as well. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. Causing hurt. I could see it, and if I understand what you're saying is that these instructions that are being putting out by these these groups like Antifa, when they hijack this crowd that's doing a peaceful, they sort of drown out the message. But then also by doing that, the police are trying to keep everybody safe, and there's being some harm done to people that should not be happening. In your case, by the groups, and in some other cases, by the police trying to keep people safe.
Yes, I think police are in an impossible situation. So in Portland, for example, they retreated. And you know what happened on our first night of rioting? For 5 hours, mobs of people had full control of downtown, looted the mall, started fires all over. So there was pressure for police to respond. So the next day they used tear gas and others to disperse violent rioters, and then that was framed as police brutality, and the city council then uh, restricted some of their tools to be able to effectively control the crowd. And the same thing has happened in Seattle with the injunction there. So I don't know what politicians want police to do. Do you want them to protect life and protect property, or do you want to give rioters the ability to destroy and kill as they've done?
The gentleman's time has expired. Thank you. I now recognize Representative Mary Gay Scanlon for her 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to join you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
Okay, great. I'm a reporter. 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 6 times Samantha Melamed repeated that phrase.